Welcome to this audio guide for the exhibition The Sleepers at the Women's Art Collection. When you enter the exhibition space, the right wall is floor-to-ceiling glass, letting in natural light and looking out onto a courtyard with flowing water and a fountain, which creates a tranquil feel. On the left wall are the artworks. It is a long but wide corridor space with overhead strip lighting. The exhibition space consists of 7 segments of wall. The first thing you encounter is the exhibition text with the title in all lowercase letters, The Sleepers. The wall colour is light blue with a dark blue font colour. It reads as follows. Scenes of rest have long been a generative motif for women artists, helping them to articulate complex and differing experiences of family, health, and work. This exhibition brings together works across a variety of mediums, paintings, prints, and textiles, including a collaborative quilt. In their own unique way, all offer a counterpoint to the familiar artistic genre of the reclining nude, a figure that is almost always a woman. In the hands of historic male artists such as Giorgione's Sleeping Venus (circa 1510), the pose carries associations and projections of idealized sensuality and passivity. In this exhibition, we see work made by women artists on their own terms. Taking its name from one of the 3 prints on display by wood engraver and painter Gwen Rivera (1885 to 1957), an artist for whom the sleeping subject became an enduring theme, The Sleepers surveys works by 12 artists to explore why sleeping, dreaming, and resting have been depicted by women artists. It also asks us to consider who has access to these vital moments of relief and respite. For those with disabilities or chronic illnesses, rest can be a complicated and sometimes inaccessible state. In 2022, the YouGov sleep study showed that 60% of women aged 25 to 59 say that they do not get enough sleep. In 2023, a study by psychologists at Nottingham Trent University found people living in deprived areas have poorer sleep quality than those in affluent areas, and studies involving Black people reported the worst sleep overall. This exhibition, its accompanying programme and booklet, aims to unpack the differing relationships between women and rest, and consider how they inform our understandings of time, labour, and care. Next to this text is the first artwork of the exhibition, Legally Stev, by Bamboo Gilly. It is a large oil painting on canvas in landscape orientation, measuring 127 by 203.2 centimetres. The scene is bathed in a surreal twilight palette of deep purples, indigos, and turquoise greens. A lone figure lies stretched across a cushioned window seat, body rendered in cool violet tones. Their head rests against a raised arm, while the other hand holds a mobile phone above their chest. The figure wears a t-shirt, shorts, and socks, their posture casual yet absorbed. The dominant backdrop is a dense forest framed by the wide window panes, painted in rich emerald and teal hues. On the left, a drawn curtain in vivid purple mirrors the figure's colouring, reinforcing a dreamlike contrast with the natural greens outside. The overall mood is both serene and ambiguous. The figure is suspended between rest and distraction, enclosed within the artificial glow of their device, while nature looms expansively just beyond the glass. The wall text reads, The Women's Art Collection, acquired through the Spirit Now London Acquisition Prize, quote, donation to a museum, end quote, in partnership with Frieze London 2024. Legally Stev, brackets, 2024, close brackets, depict a close friend of the artist gazing into their phone with a backdrop of a woodland beyond. The blue, green, and turquoise palette gives the scene a sense of serenity, but also an ambiguity as to whether it is day or night. The swathes of green in the forest might be rays of sunlight, while the dark blues of both the subject and the interior could indicate nightfall. The boundaries between the subject and the interior appear to dissolve. This work, painted in the years following the COVID-19 lockdowns, encourages us to think about how, for many, technology and rest have become intertwined, and how for those who stayed at home in the pandemic, night blended into day without the usual punctuations of work or routine. The second wall is painted white and contains 5 artworks. The wall texts are placed on the edges of the wall. This wall begins with a series of 3 prints by the artist Gwen Revera, born in 1885 and died in 1957. All 3 artworks belong to the Women's Art Collection, donated in 2016 by Ben Duncan and Richard Chapman. First is a lithograph in landscape orientation named Sleepers, made in 1927. It is 39 by 47 centimetres. The black and white print depicts 2 semi-nude women lying next to one another in a bed. In the foreground, one of the women lies curled on her side in the fetal position, her dark hair pulling forwards on the pillow and her lower legs peeking out of the bottom of the blanket. The second woman reclines on her back, her right arm raised and bent across her forehead. The blanket is pulled across both of them. The texture of the bedding is rendered with dense, expressive strokes, creating a heavy atmosphere of stillness and intimacy. The scene is framed within a rectangular border in a landscape orientation. The second print is a woodcut, also black and white, made in 1932. It is called "Good Night!" The work measures 29 by 25.5 centimetres. A woman with short hair lies sleeping on a soft pillow under a blanket. Only the side of her head and the fingertips of her right hand are visible. The scene is cropped tightly, and the hand-carved texture creates bold lines of shadow in the bedding, creating an intimate feel. The final print of these 3 is a square lithograph, made around 1927. It is black and white and a portrait orientation, measuring 52 by 45 centimetres. The print shows a quiet, sunlit interior of a woman reclining in a large, high-backed armchair beside an open French window. She is curled on her side with her legs tucked underneath her, one hand resting on her cheek. Her left arm holds a black cat on her lap, the eyes visible as small white dots. On the right are tall French windows standing open, revealing an ornate ironwork balcony and leafy branches. Light floods in from the outside, casting the woman into shadow. A vase is partially silhouetted in the foreground at the right edge of the composition. The wall text for all 3 artworks reads, "As well as being a mother and carer for her husband, Gwen Revera's creative output in woodcuts, painting, writing and drawing was prolific. Before the age of 35, she had over 60 wood engravings and had co-founded the Society of Wood Engravers. From 1921 to 1925, Ravera and her family moved to Vence, France for her husband, artist Jacques Ravera, brackets, 1885 to 1925, close brackets, to convalesce, eventually becoming bedbound with his worsening multiple sclerosis. In 1924, Jacques wrote about the nature of Gwen's life at this time in a letter to Virginia Woolf, describing how she was busy, quote, nursing me and looking after her children and painting 10 hours a day and doing woodcuts, end quote. Several historians have observed Ravera's recurring depictions of sleeping, recumbent figures, frequently drawing Jacques and her children asleep or lying in bed. In The French Window, a young girl, likely one of her daughters, is curled up asleep in a chair in the balcony of their home in Vence with their cat on her lap. In Sleepers, the family nanny, Babette Giraud, who joined the family in 1923, is here depicted moving across the bed in two different sleeping positions. Perhaps working whilst others slept allowed her to enjoy a quiet moment and pursue what she loved amidst a life of caring for others. The next artwork on this wall is Celia Paul's monochromed etching titled Pregnant Girl. It is from 1991 and depicts a woman reclining in bed, eyes closed, with her head turned slightly to one side. Her body is partly covered by the bedding, and in the background, another figure, possibly her reflection, rests against pillows. The composition is rendered in energetic, overlapping lines, giving the scene a restless texture despite its stillness. Celia Paul was born in 1959. This artwork measures 18 by 22 centimetres. It belongs to the Women's Art Collection and was donated by the artist in 1999. The wall text reads, "The etching, Pregnant Girl, open brackets 1991, close brackets, by Celia Paul shows the artist's friend, the film producer Alison Owen, reclining with her eyes closed, her hands resting across her pregnant body. The technique of etching allows for fast-paced mark-making, reminiscent of sketches produced in pencil. Paul uses cross-hatching and repeated curved lines to represent Owen's physicality and the texture of her surroundings. Her eyes are closed and her lips smiling, a sitter at ease in Paul's company, happy to share this intimate moment." The final artwork on this wall is called The Rest Before the Revolution. Artist Jenny Polak, born in 1957, and Nancy Willis, born 1953, have joined together to create this artwork specifically for the exhibition. It is made with UV-cured inkjet prints on mylar, plywood, wire, and LED light. It was put together by Kate Polak and Chelsea Vivash. The whole photo montage measures 50 by 50 by 12 centimetres. This artwork consists of several translucent black and white photographic prints, hung from the pale wooden frame at the top. It depicts two nude figures resting among foliage. At the top is the back of the woman, while below it is the front of the woman, her body relaxed and eyes closed. A strip light behind the images at the top shines down, causing the layered images to softly glow. Beneath and around the figure, lush leaves and tangled stems create a textured backdrop. The photographic prints overlap in an irregular arrangement, causing the body and foliage to merge and the boundaries between the two to become blurred. The wall text reads, "This work explores beauty, sexuality, and the claiming of space, themes that have historically excluded people with disabilities. Inspired by Gwen Revera's Sleepers from 1927, Jenny Polak has reprinted photographs she took of Nancy Willis and her garden in the early 1990s. The Rest Before the Revolution revisits a large-scale installation created by the artists in 1995. Both iterations evoke bodily autonomy, care and agency in the supposedly passive body of the artist's model. The original collaboration was a significant work within the disability arts movement, which brought strength and a voice to disabled people fighting to have their civil rights recognised and enshrined in law. The photos are now transparencies, layered to create a composition of the body in nature. Both artists live with chronic illness and disability and understand rest as a space for physical and mental peace. For Willis, rest is a daily necessity due to her progressive health condition, whilst for Polak, rest enables her to quieten the ongoing struggles her body can present. The third wall contains 3 artworks by different artists. The wall colour is white. The first artwork in this trio is the oil work on canvas, Dreaming in the Bath, made in 1991 by Lucy Revera, who was born in 1948. It measures 100 by 90 centimetres. Next is Sea Wind from 1995 by Kate Montgomery. It is the smallest of the 3, measuring 60 by 52 centimetres, and painted using casein tempera on wood. The final artwork is titled Karina by the Window by Anne Dowker from 1990. It is a large oil work on canvas, measuring 123 by 112 centimetres. Dreaming in the Bath by Lucy Revera is a scene of a nude woman in a bathtub. Viewed from above at an angle, the scene shows a deep clawfoot bathtub positioned diagonally across the image. The woman's pale skin appears softened through the shimmering surface of the water, her long hair fanning out in translucent waves. Her arms cross loosely over her torso in a gesture of stillness. Water flows from both taps at the head of the tub, creating faint concentric ripples that distort the contours of her body. The surrounding bathroom is vivid and geometric. The floor is covered in a repeating triangular pattern in ochre, teal, and red. To the right sits a black-lidded toilet. At its base, a plush red bath mat with a green central rectangle lies neatly, topped by a pair of black slippers. The walls are tiled in muted purple squares, adding a quiet backdrop to the kaleidoscopic floor. The perspective compresses the space, making the viewer hover above the bath like an unseen observer, reinforcing the intimacy of the moment. Sea Wind by Kate Montgomery is a stylized bedroom interior. The walls are painted in warm terracotta orange, with the lower sections clad in jade green geometric tiles. The floor bursts with intricate blue tiling, decorated in interlocking squares. On the left, a small window is open. Against this tapestry of patterns stands a simple iron bed in the centre, its cover striped in greens, brown and creams, with a small patterned rug beneath. A solitary figure in deep red pyjamas sits on the edge of the bed. Her blonde hair glows against the rich backdrop. She faces towards the window, chin resting on her hand, in a pose of quiet contemplation. The large central window above is filled with movement. A large floral curtain billows inwards dramatically, as if caught by a strong gust of sea air. Through the opening, the outside urban world is glimpsed. Karina by the Window by Anne Dowker depicts a young woman with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair seated at the edge of a bed covered in deep blue fabric. She is wearing a grey hooded sweatshirt and pale trousers, leaning forwards with her head tilted down as she draws. Behind her, a large window with yellow shutters dominates the scene. Bare winter trees and brick buildings are visible. The surface of the painting is textured with visible brushstrokes. The palette of blues, greys, and ochres creates a quiet, contemplative atmosphere. The wall text reads, "In these three works from the early 1990s, the artists are reflecting on their experiences of rest as artist mothers. Reclining or sleeping is a frequent motif in the work of Kate Montgomery, who understands daydreaming and thinking as especially precious and valuable after having 3 children, but not always easy to find. Similarly, Lucy Reverat began painting when she had 4 young children and minimal childcare. This self-portrait emphasizes the value and the beauty of quiet domestic moments for artist mothers with an increasingly stretched existence. For Anne Dowker, painting her daughter reading was a way for her to capture a moment of stillness, without the usual pressures of time or comfort associated with sitting for a portrait. The fourth wall contains 2 large screen print artworks on paper by Helen Kammock, born in 1970. They were both made in 2020 and measure 100 by 150 centimetres. The work on the left is called "Can You Remember When You Last Did Nothing?" It is a rectangular work with a flat, solid green background. Across the bottom, in white typewritten style text, is the title question. The work is spare and striking, offering up the question and a gentle challenge, urging the viewer to pause and consider rest not as absence, but as a lost practice in a world that demands constant productivity. The work on the right takes the same format as the first, but with a deep burgundy background. Across the centre, in the same white font, are the words, "When you last did nothing, can you remember how it felt?" It mirrors the simplicity of the green work, but the question presses further, moving from memory to feeling. This demands an internal reckoning, not only to recall moments of idleness, but to reconnect with the sensations of rest and stillness. The wall text reads, "These 2 prints were created as part of Helen Kammock's residency at Whiting Art Centre in Cambridgeshire from 2019 to 2020. Originally staged as 2 large exterior billboards on the roads outside Whiting for passers-by and commuters to see, the artist invites us to consider our own relationship to rest, the structural and social implications of who is enabled to embrace idleness and who is not, and the critical activation of idleness as a tool for resistance. They are on display courtesy of the artist and Kate McGarry, London." This wall is dominated by the large oil painting on canvas by Laura Foots, accompanied to the right by a smaller artwork on paper by Tracy Emin. Laura Foots' painting titled "A Healing Dream" from 2024 is of a nude figure lying on their back in bed, partly covered by a pale sheet. Their hands rest loosely across their stomach and thigh, while their head is turned away from the viewer towards the open window on the upper left of the image. At the bedside, a small round table holds a standing mirror. Many hands caress the body in acts of tenderness and care, holding the figure's hand and resting across their forehead. To the left, a window looks out onto a pastel-toned city street in muted greens and pinks. The overall palette of the work blends soft lilacs, blues, and turquoise, giving the scene a dreamlike glow. The wall text reads, "Collection of Bill Eagles," courtesy of Laura Foots and Carl Friedman Gallery, Margate. In this painting, a nude woman reclines on a bed with washes of pink and blue. She faces away from us, and several pairs of anonymous hands caress her body, hands, and face, whilst her back is slightly arched as if in discomfort. In the background, an open window shows a bright urban street whilst a pink haze of sunlight beams onto the bed, clearly demarcating the resting body and the outside world. Foot's work draws from her experiences of chronic illness and of being prescribed bed rest from a young age. The solitary figure, the mysterious pairs of hands, and the dark corner of the room create an acute sense of uneasiness and isolation, and invite us to consider how rest is not always a welcome nor a comfortable experience. To the right of Foot's painting is this work on paper by Tracey Emin, born 1963, titled The End. It measures 36.2 by 37.9 by 3.8 centimetres. The piece was made in 2012 and belongs to the Ruth Borchardt collection, loaned for this exhibition courtesy of Piano Nobile, London. A loose gestural drawing in deep blue ink depicts a reclining nude figure at the foot of a large bed. The figure's body is sketched with sweeping broken lines, their legs splayed and head tilted back. The bed behind them is rendered with bold, blocky strokes, the pillows and mattress outlined in heavy marks. The drawing is raw and immediate, with areas of inky density contrasting against the white paper. The wall text reads, "For Tracey Emin, self-portraits in and around the bed have been an enduring motif through which to explore ideas around vulnerability, intimacy, and pain. In this self-portrait, which is part of a larger series, Emin depicts an isolated figure on the floor at the edge of a bed with her legs strewn apart and her head tilted to the side. The loose, energetic mark making with gouache and the figure being on the floor instead of on the bed behind her indicates a state of anguish, possibly as a result of Emin's open struggle with insomnia. Here, rest seems out of reach." At the far end of the exhibition corridor are the final two wall spaces. They are both painted the same pale blue as the first wall, bookending the exhibition. This creates a corner where a visitor is drawn into both artworks on display almost simultaneously. First, you encounter the textile piece created in 2024 by Jo Underhill, born in 1997. It measures 62 by 28 centimetres and is titled Rest, Rise, Reclaim, full stop. This piece belongs to the artist. The work is a rectangular strip of coarse beige Hessian fabric with frayed edges. Across the surface, 3 words embroidered in bold red capital letters appear stacked in 2 lines. Rest, rise, are on the first line, and reclaim, full stop, is beneath. The fabric is pinned to the wall at the top corners. The simplicity of the piece draws the entire attention to the message of bodily rest as a necessity for political action. The wall text reads, "In this work, red yarn is woven into Hessian to read Rest, Rise, Reclaim." As an early career artist who creates work about experiences of Black womanhood, this work is both a reflection of and a commitment to their rigorous and thoughtful way of working. For Amusan, Hessian symbolises migration, endurance and survival, whilst the red yarn adds what she calls a, quote, gentle urgency, end quote, to her messages. Amu-san sees moments of stillness as a way to care for herself and others, whilst Rise and Reclaim speak to Amu-san's ambition and drive to continue to develop her practice and uplift others along the way. Here, rest is positioned as a necessary step in a sustainable artistic career. The final wall in the exhibition contains a community quilt created by the Cambridge Women's Resource Centre, So Positive, and Kate Morton-Lyle in 2025 for this exhibition. It is a patchwork quilt composed of 24 individually crafted fabric squares, each one made by a different participant. The panels use embroidery, applique, and fabric painting to depict personal visions of rest, stillness, and quiet. The squares include imagery such as houses, landscapes, night skies, text fragments, abstract patterns, and domestic scenes. Around the border, embroidered words frame the quilt. It reads, quote, "Rest is, ellipses, the search for peace and quiet, full stop. I finally did nothing and it felt amazing, exclamation mark. It's hard to shut my brain off. I always feel guilty when I'm resting, full stop." End quote. The wall text reads, "Objects, places, and phrases associated with resting, relaxing, and sleeping are stitched into this community quilt by local Cambridge women. This quilt has been created with two Cambridge community groups, the Cambridge Women's Resource Centre, CWRC, who provide a range of services for women in Cambridge, and So Positive, who help those experiencing social exclusion to care for their mental health through craft. Over a period of 6 months, the art group at the CWRC worked with the Women's Art Collection and Kate Morton-Lyle in a series of conversational workshops to explore their relationship to rest and sleep, whilst working on a square of fabric to capture their creative responses. For many of the women, this was their first experience working with embroidery. The colours used are drawn from Bamboo Gillies' Legally Stev, while the text around the sides of the quilt is inspired by the work of quilter and painter Faith Ringgold. This quilt was supported by Cambridge Art Society and Backstitch Cambridge. Thank you for listening to this audiovisual description guide of The Sleepers at the Women's Art Collection. The descriptions were written and recorded by Susanna Rose Morgan, accessibility consultant for the exhibition, in partnership with Laura Moseley, the curator.